The scent of instant noodles and lingering exhaustion clung to the air in Furi's cramped apartment. It was the scent of her life. A chaotic, love-filled, perpetually frantic rush. She smoothed down her one good interview blouse, a pale blue silk knockoff that felt like a suit of armor. In the reflection of a cracked mirror, a woman stared back weary, but with a fire in her eyes that refused to be extinguished. "Okay, my little treasures," she announced, her voice a blend of maternal warmth and military command. "Bao, you're in charge. No science experiments that involve the toaster. Bao, don't use my lipstick to draw on Sam Bao. Si Bao, Tia Bao. Please just try not to set anything on fire." 5 small heads nodded in solemn unison, their expressions a little too angelic. As soon as the door clicked shut behind her, the facade crumbled. Bao, the eldest and self-proclaimed mission commander, swiveled in his chair and powered up their cobbled-together computer. A beam of light shot across the room, projecting a meticulously organized file onto the blank wall. Emblazoned across the top in bold, childish fun were the words: "The Great Daddy Quest. Final candidate selection operation. Reconnect is a go," Bao declared, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Is it the chef god again?" piped up Bao, his stomach rumbling audibly. "I want a daddy who can make unlimited crispy pork belly." "No." Bao, the budding fashionista, protested, flipping her pigtails. "We need the fashion icon from Paris. He'll get us all designer clothes." "Mummy deserves pretty things." San Bao, the quietest of the quintuplets, pointed a small finger at the screen. "I want that one. The one who looks like a superhero." Bao cleared his throat, silencing the debate with an air of immense gravity. He clicked a button and a new profile filled the wall. It was a man whose chiseled features seemed carved from ice and arrogance. His suit was impossibly sharp, his gaze piercing even through the photograph. Below the image, a staggering net worth was listed. "All your criteria are irrelevant," Bao announced. "I have found the optimal candidate. Meet Fu, CEO of the Fugu Group. He is China's wealthiest man, a genius investor, and according to my research, a master of 17 different martial arts." He paused for dramatic effect. "Most importantly, he is our primary target." The other four stared, mesmerized. He was handsome, like a prince from a storybook, but with an intimidating coldness that made them shiver. "How will Mummy meet him?" Tia Bao asked, a voice a small whisper. Bao grinned, a flash of pure genius in his eyes. "I took the liberty of enhancing Mummy's resume and submitting it for a designer position at his company. According to my calculations, their initial face-to-face interaction is scheduled for right about now." He tapped a key, and a complex algorithm flashed on screen, ending in a single, triumphant conclusion. Genetic match. 99.999%. This wasn't just a quest to find a father. It was a mission to reclaim the one they already had. The Fugu Group headquarters was less a building and more a monument to power. It pierced the skyline, a shard of glass and steel that screamed ambition. Inside, the lobby was a cavern of white marble and echoing silence. Furi clutched her worn portfolio to her chest, her simple blouse feeling painfully inadequate amidst the sea of bespoke suits and designer dresses. Every step on the polished floor felt like an intrusion. She was a stray sparrow that had wandered into an eagle's nest. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she was led to the top floor. The secretary, a woman with a smile as sharp and thin as a paper cut, gestured towards a set of colossal oak doors. "Mister, who will see you now?" Furi took a deep breath, pushing the doors open and stepping into an office so vast it felt like a different climate zone. A wall of glass offered a breathtaking panorama of the entire city, laying it out like a map at the feet of its owner. And there he was, the owner himself, a silhouette against the blinding light, his attention buried in a document on his massive, uncluttered desk. "Name," he said, the word clipped, devoid of warmth or interest. He didn't bother to look up. "Fury," she managed, a voice barely a whisper. The pen in his hand stopped moving. Slowly, with a glacial dread that filled the room, he lifted his head. His eyes, dark and piercing, widened almost imperceptibly. The mask of indifference shattered, replaced by a storm of shock, disbelief, and a flicker of something else, something that looked like raw fury. 7 years dissolved in an instant. The name, the face, it was her. The air crackled, and the opulent office walked into a memory of a rain-lashed university campus. She was younger then, desperate, her clothes soaked through as she stood before him, pleading. "Please, Fu," her past self begged, tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. "My family is forcing me into a marriage. Just a contract. A temporary marriage to get me out. I'll disappear after. I swear." His face was a mask of cold disdain, his words a blade that severed her last thread of hope. "Marriage is not a game to be played for your convenience. And if it were," he'd added, his gaze sweeping over her with cutting dismissal, "I would never choose you as a partner." He had left her standing there, heartbroken and utterly alone. Back in the present, the memory's chill seeped into her bones. The blood drained from her face. This was him. The man she'd fled from. The man whose rejection had set the course for her entire life. This impossible, godlike CEO was the father of her children. Panic seized her. "I'm so sorry," she stammered, backing away towards the door. "There's been a mistake. Wrong company. I just happened to apply here." She turned to flee, her hand fumbling for the doorknob. But he moved with the startling speed of a predator. In a blur of motion, he was out from behind his desk, his large frame blocking her exit. He placed a hand flat against the door, trapping her. The clean, expensive scent of his cologne filled her senses, suffocating her. He leaned in, his voice a low, dangerous growl that vibrated through the wood. "After 7 years of silence, you just happened to appear in my office, applying for a job at my company." His eyes bored into hers, searching, demanding. "Explain yourself." Fury. The marble lobby of Fu Group headquarters was a cathedral of corporate power, all gleaming surfaces and hushed, reverent footsteps. It was no place for a child. Yet, there he stood, a small boy with an oversized backpack and an air of unshakable purpose. First adjusted his glasses, his gaze sweeping over the monolithic security desk before landing on a distracted courier. With the stealth of a seasoned operative, he slipped a folded piece of paper into an outgoing document tray marked for the CEO's office, then melted back into the flow of people. A ghost in a child's body, upstairs, in an office that overlooked a city like a king's throne room. Fu scanned the document, his brow furrowed. Tucked inside a Q3 financial report was a note, written in a child's blocky print but containing a complex cipher. A game, he thought, annoyed. He almost tossed it, but a flicker of intellectual curiosity, the part of him that thrived on solving puzzles, took over. Seconds later, the decrypted message lay on his desk. "I'm your son. Come find me." Before he could process the absurdity, his office door opened. His assistant, Kai, looked flustered. "Sir, there's a child. He says he has an appointment." Standing behind him was the boy, Fu's breath caught in his throat. It was like looking at a miniature, fiercely serious version of himself. The same obsidian eyes, the same stubborn set of the jaw, the same air of arrogant calm. "You're Fu?" first asked, his voice steady. He walked past the stunned assistant and stood before the massive mahogany desk, unafraid. "Good. My name is First. I'm your real son." He slid a photograph across the desk, a picture of Fury, her face etched with exhaustion but her smile radiating a warmth they hadn't felt in years. My mother's name is Furui. Our address is on the back. Fu stared, his mind a maelstrom of shock and suspicion. This had to be a scam, a sophisticated play for his fortune. But that face was his. Kai, he snapped, his voice tight. Verify this. The woman, the address, nah. As Kai hurried out, Fu leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. This is a very dangerous game you're playing. Little boy first simply met his gaze. It's not a game. That night, the quiet, run-down alley where Furui lived was shattered by the screech of tires. A black sedan, sleek and predatory, pulled up to her cramped apartment building. Fu kicked the door open, the cheapwood splintering around the lot. He stormed in, flanked by two imposing men in black suits, his face a mask of cold fury. Where is he? Fu's voice was a low growl echoing in the small, cluttered living room. The air smelled of laundry detergent and boiled rice. A world away from his sterile, minimalist penthouse. Furui, who had been frantically tucking her other four children into their shared bedroom, spun around, her heart hammered against her ribs. A wild bird trapped in a cage. She stood between him and the bedroom door, her body a fragile but unyielding shield. Get out of my house, you dare. Fu advanced on her, his shadow swallowing her whole. You hide my son from me for 5 years, and then send him to my office as part of some pathetic shakedown. His eyes scanned the tiny apartment with disgust. What is this? A kidnapping plot. You abduct my child and then try to ransom him back to me. Your son. Furui's voice trembled with rage. He is my son. I carried him. I raised him. You were just a mistake. A drunken night I was forced to forget. His men moved to push past her. Instinct took over. Furui shoved one back with surprising force, her nails digging into the arm of the other. Don't you touch that door. You will not terrorize my children. The raw, feral desperation in her eyes gave Fu pause. This wasn't the act of a calculated grifter. This was the fury of a cornered mother. He held up a hand, and his men stopped. Fine, he said, his voice dangerously soft. You want to protect your children. Then you'll do exactly as I say. He saw the confusion and fear on her face and pressed his advantage. As of tomorrow, you will work for me at Fu Group. You will be my personal secretary. Furui stared at him, incredulous. What? Are you insane? I need to keep an eye on my newly discovered son, he said, the words dripping with condescending menace. And the best way to prevent any more kidnapping attempts is to keep his accomplice where I can see her. He stepped back, the picture of magnanimous control. My men will be here at 7 a.m. to collect you. And first, the next day, the Fu Group offices were buzzing. Furui sat at a desk just outside Fu's office, feeling like an animal in a zoo. The clothes they provided were expensive but felt like a costume. Beside her, on a small stool, sat First, calmly tapping away on a high-end laptop Fu had reluctantly provided. He was supposed to be under his father's watch, but he looked more like a miniature supervisor. Colleagues walked by, their whispers trailing behind them like toxic perfume. Look at that boy, he's a carbon copy of Mr. Fu. Who is she? I've never seen her before. Can you imagine? A secret son? The speculation was a vice, squeezing the air from her lungs. Inside his office, Fu was on a frantic conference call. What do you mean the trading algorithm is frozen? Unfreeze it. He slammed his hand on the desk, his gaze inadvertently landing on First. The boy was staring at his laptop screen, a faint, satisfied smile on his lips. Suddenly, a wail of digital alarms blared from Fu's computer. Red numbers cascaded down the screen. $100 million trade had just been liquidated. At a catastrophic loss. What is happening? He roared into the phone, just as Kai burst in, his face pale. Sir, the system, it's been breached. from an internal IP address. Kai's eyes darted nervously toward the small boy in the corner. Fu hung up the phone, a horrifying suspicion dawning on him. He walked slowly, deliberately, to where First sat. The boy looked up, his expression innocent, but his eyes held a glint of steel that was all too familiar. "That was a warning," First said, his voice as calm as a frozen lake. "My mother is not your accomplice. She is not your prisoner. And she is not to be bullied." He pushed his glasses up his nose. "The next time you make her cry, the loss won't be 100 million. It will be 1 billion. The design department at Fangbo Jewelry was a temple of minimalist aesthetics and hushed reverence. Light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, glinting off glass partitions, and the polished silver of unfinished pieces. For Furi, it was the first rung on a ladder back to a life she thought she'd lost forever. The illusion shattered the moment Vivi Chen, the department head, glided into the room. Vivi was a vision in a tailored crimson dress, her posture radiating an authority that had little to do with her job title and everything to do with the whispered rumors that followed her like a shadow. She was Fu's chosen partner, the mother of his heir. Her eyes, sharp as cut diamonds, scanned the team before landing on Furi. A flicker of recognition, and a slow, venomous smile. The heavy silence in Fu's penthouse office was broken only by the sharp rustle of paper. He stared at the DNA report, the words blurring into an indictment. Biological father. The phrase repeated itself, not 3 times, but 5. Quintuplets. A tremor of fury, cold and sharp, shot through him. She hadn't just hidden his children from him. She had lied about their very number, erasing 2 of them from existence with a simple omission. The deception was a physical blow, stealing the air from his lungs. He was a father of 5, and the woman who had made him one was a consummate liar. At that exact moment, Vivi was putting the final touches on her own brand of betrayal. She watched from her office as a courier handed Furi a crisp envelope bearing Fu's forged insignia. Inside was a directive, concise and urgent. Deliver sensitive design schematics for the spring launch to a key investor, Mr. Zhang, at the Grand Orion Hotel. It was a perfect trap, preying on Furi's diligence and her desperate need to prove her competence. Furi, seeing the official letterhead, never questioned it. This was her chance. A direct order from Fu himself. She clutched the portfolio to her chest and hurried out, the city lights ablur through the taxi window. The hotel suite was opulent, the air thick with the scent of whiskey and expensive cologne. Mr. Zhang greeted her with a smile that didn't reach his predatory eyes. "Ms. Furi," he purred, closing the door behind her. The click of the lock echoed ominously. "Mr. Fu told me you'd be bringing something special." He took a step closer, his intentions slithering into the open. "Forget the documents. He said you were the real delivery." Panic seized her. Furi backed away, her heart hammering against her ribs as Zhang lunged, his hands grabbing at her arms. The portfolio scattered across the plush carpet. "Get off of me," she cried, her voice swallowed by the soundproof walls. Just as his weight pressed her down, the suite door exploded inward, splintering off its hinges. Fu stood silhouetted in the doorway, his face a mask of incandescent rage. He moved with a speed that was terrifying, yanking the portly investor off Furi and throwing him against the wall with a sickening thud. He didn't spare the whimpering man a second glance, his entire focus consumed by the sight of Furi, huddled and trembling on the floor. He reached for her, but she flinched away, scrambling backward until her back hit the sofa. Her eyes, wide with terror and accusation, burned into him. "You," she whispered, the word laced with venom. "This was you. You and Vivi Furi." "No," he started, his voice rough. "I didn't. Save it." She spat, pulling herself to her feet, her professional blazer torn at the shoulder. The fear in her eyes was hardening into something far more dangerous. Resolve. You wanted to humiliate me, to break me. You've underestimated me for the last time. Her voice dropped to a low, chilling promise. I will expose her, and I will make you regret the day you chose to believe a snake instead of me. Without another word, she pushed past him, leaving him standing in the wreckage of the room, the weight of her words colder than any lie on a DNA report. 2 days later, the Grand Hall for Fangbo Jewelry's spring collection launch glittered under a constellation of crystal chandeliers. Vivi, radiant in a crimson gown, moved through the crowd with the serene confidence of a predator whose prey was already caught. She smirked, imagining the imminent chaos when the main screen would flash not with diamond necklaces, but with grainy, compromising photos of Furui in a hotel room carefully edited to imply a sordid affair with Mr. Zhang. Her career would be over. Furui took her position by the podium, a vision of calm composure in a simple, elegant white dress. She met Vivi's triumphant gaze with an unnervingly steady look. The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the audience of industry leaders and media. Presenting, the announcer's voice boomed, Fangbo's first Bloom collection, designed by our visionary new talent, Furui. The main screen flickered to life, but instead of polished marketing visuals, it showed a grainy, covertly filmed video of Vivi's office. Her voice, sharp and unmistakable, filled the silent hall. Make sure Zhang knows what to do. I want her ruined. The photos need to look convincing. Fu will never trust her again. Her collective gasp rippled through the audience. Vivi froze, the color draining from her face. This wasn't her video. This was her own plot, her own voice, betraying her in front of everyone. No, stop it. Turn it off, she shrieked, stumbling toward the tech booth, but security guards were already moving to block her path. The audio continued, a damning monologue of her entire scheme, from the forged order to the planned media smear. The video ended, plunging the screen into darkness. A single spotlight found Furui at the podium. She held up a small USB drive. For anyone doubting the authenticity of that recording, she announced, her voice clear and resonant, carrying to every corner of the hall. I have the original, unedited audio and video files right here. The room erupted. Camera flashes strobed like lightning. Reporters surged forward, shouting questions. Vivi stood paralyzed in the spotlight's glare, a reputation not just tarnished, but annihilated in a single, perfectly executed counterattack. Amid the frenzy, Furui stood tall, her integrity reclaimed, her talent undeniably vindicated. Across the room, hidden in the shadows of a balcony, Fu watched it all. The force of his regret a crushing weight in his chest. The scent of coffee and toasted bread, a fragrance so achingly domestic it felt foreign, drifted into the guest room of Fu's penthouse. Furui sat on the edge of the bed, the morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the sprawling city below. It was a view from a different world, a world she'd only ever seen in magazines. Last night, after the tumultuous success of the product launch and the public unraveling of Vivi's scheme, Fu had insisted they all come here. Not to his house, but to their home. The words had hung in the air, a promise she wasn't yet ready to accept. A soft knock preceded the door swinging open. Fu stood there, not in one of his impeccably tailored suits, but in a simple grey t-shirt and sweatpants. He held a steaming mug, a hesitant smile playing on his lips. I thought you might need this, he said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. Before she could answer, a cacophony of small voices erupted from the living room, giggles and the sound of sock-clad feet sliding on polished marble floors. Daddy, you're doing it wrong. The jam goes on after the butter. No, butter first. He's the CEO. He knows everything. Furui's heart clenched. Daddy. The word sounded so natural coming from them, as if they'd been saying it their whole lives. Fu's phone buzzed on the kitchen island. He glanced at the caller ID, his expression hardening for a moment before he answered, his voice dropping into its familiar, authoritative tone. Yes, I see. No, that's the correct course of action. Fugu Corporation will issue a formal statement disavowing any connection to her actions, and will cooperate fully with the authorities regarding the intellectual property theft, terminate her contract and begin legal proceedings. Immediately, he hung up, the silence he left behind feeling heavy. He turned to face Furi, his gaze searching hers. It's done, he said simply. Vivi's been fired. The board is pressing charges. Her career is over. There was no triumph in his voice, only a grim finality. Furi felt the flicker of pity, but it was quickly extinguished by the memory of Vivi's cruel laughter, the sting of humiliation. It wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, a necessary end to a chapter of pain. Fu closed the distance between them, stopping a few feet away as if approaching a frightened deer. Furi, he began, his voice thick with an emotion she couldn't place. I have spent the last week, the last few days especially, replaying every moment since I met you, and all I feel is shame. He took a deep breath, the confession seeming to cost him dearly. I was so blinded by my own arrogance. I saw you as an obstacle, a complication to my perfectly ordered life. I judged you without knowing a single thing about your struggle, about the 5 years you spent raising our children alone. Our children, he choked on the word. The reality of it still new, still raw. I watched you last night, he continued, his eyes glistening with unused tears, standing on that stage, defending your work, defending your integrity with a strength I've never witnessed in anyone. And I realized I hadn't just misjudged a designer. I had failed the most incredible woman I have ever met. I failed my own family. He finally stepped forward, his hands finding hers. They were warm, strong, but trembling slightly. I can never take back the pain I caused you, the humiliation, the mistrust. But I will spend every day for the rest of my life trying to earn your forgiveness, trying to be the partner you deserve, and the father our children need. I'm so sorry, Furui, the fortress around her heart, built brick by painful brick over 5 lonely years, began to crumble. It wasn't the force of his words that broke through, but the quiet, devastating truth in his eyes. She saw not the imperious CEO who had once dismissed her, but a man laid bare, stripped of his pride, offering her the broken pieces of his heart. A tear she didn't know she was holding back slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. Suddenly, the door burst open and 5 little figures tumbled into the room, a whirlwind of energy and matching pajamas. Operation Find Daddy is officially complete, Leo announced, striking a triumphant pose. Myla, the strategist, held up a crayon drawing of their family, a smiling sun beaming down on 7 stick figures. Mission accomplished. Team, high five. The twins, Kai and Ken, shouted, slapping hands with everyone in reach. Little Zoe toddled over and wrapped her arms around Fu's leg. Daddy home, she mumbled into his sweatpants. Fu knelt, his expression shifting from remorse to pure, unadulterated adoration as he scooped Zoe into his arms. He looked at the other 4, his gaze sweeping over each of their faces as if memorizing them. You guys, he said, his voice cracking. Your great daddy quest. You have no idea what you've done. Leo puffed out his chest. We got our daddy back, and we made sure Mummy's work was saved from the mean lady. It was a 2-part mission. Laughter, clear and bright, bubbled up from Furui's chest, surprising them all. It felt like releasing a breath she'd been holding for 5 years. The weight on her shoulders, the constant fear and solitude, began to dissolve in the warmth of the sunlit room. Just then, The doorbell chimed. A moment later, Brahma appeared, her face beaming. She took in the scene: Fu on the floor surrounded by his children, Furi standing beside them with tears of relief on her face and her eyes crinkled with joy. "Well, it's about time," she declared, setting down a large basket overflowing with groceries. "I always knew you two were meant to be, it just took you a little longer to figure it out. Now, who wants Grandma's famous dumplings for breakfast?" A chorus of me echoed through the penthouse. The rest of the morning was a blur of beautiful, chaotic domesticity. The sterile, magazine-perfect apartment was transformed. Toes were strewn across the expensive rug. Flour dusted the marble countertops. The air filled with the sizzle of dumplings and the sound of unrestrained laughter. Amidst the happy chaos, Fu found Furi by the window, watching their children chase each other around the sofa. He came to stand behind her, his arms circling her waist, pulling her back against his chest. She leaned into his embrace, the fit so natural it felt like coming home. "Look at them," he whispered into her hair. "We made them. You raised them. You protected them." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "Let me protect you now. Let me love all of you." Furi turned in his arms, her hands coming up to cup his face. She looked into his eyes and saw her future reflected there, not the fairy tale of ball gowns and glass slippers, but something far more real and infinitely more precious. It was a future of messy breakfasts, of homework help and bedtime stories, of shared burdens and celebrated triumphs. It was the future she had stopped allowing herself to dream of. "Okay," she whispered, her voice steady and clear. "Okay, Fu." His smile was like the sun breaking through the clouds. He leaned in and kissed her. A kiss that held no arrogance or demand, only promises. It was a kiss of forgiveness, of new beginnings, of a love story that had taken the long way around but had finally found its way home. Over his shoulder, she saw their 5 children stop their game, mischievous grins spreading across their faces as they gave each other a series of silent, victorious thumbs-ups. Their quest was over. Their family was whole.